When it's time to get serious in your garden, it is time for STIHL, Australia's #1 brand for garden power tools. I'll be telling you about STIHL's great range of battery-powered outdoor equipment a little later in the podcast. But for now, let me just say they're powerful, they're lightweight, quiet, and they give you the power and performance you need to take care of some serious work in your garden. Check out the full range and find your nearest dealer now at stihl.com.au.
A listener production.
In the past few decades, Australia and the world have become increasingly more sustainable and environmentally friendly minded. As a society, we've come to realise how important it is to understand nature, care for it, and ultimately to live in harmony with it. There's a few people we have to thank for that.
I want the understory. I want to leave the dead branches because that's where moths attach. That's where caterpillars exist. I did that 1 year and I got cluster bees. I'd never had native cluster bees come to my garden.
Hi, I'm Charlie Albone, and in partnership with STIHL on this episode of That's How We Grow, I'm catching up with the one and only Costa Georgiadis.
I got a letter from the council saying your garden's overgrown.
Costa is a well-known Aussie legend, landscape architect and gardener. Featuring in numerous award-winning television programs over the years, Costa and his equally acclaimed beard have shared their love for nature, sustainability and community gardens far and wide. So spring is a wonderful time in the garden, but it can often be quite a dry time in the garden. But today we have been blessed. Outside it is absolutely teeming with rain, which is fantastic because it's moisturising all our gardens, but it's also fantastic and very fortuitous because it has freed up the schedule of one of the busiest men in the industry. Welcome to the show, Costa Georgiadis.
Charlie, what a treat. It took a storm and tempest to help us get our calendars to
line up, but we're here now. We're doing it now, which is
unreal.
Fantastic. Yeah,
I'm stoked.
Yeah. You're one of the most recognisable people on television, I reckon. But how did it all start?
Wow, that's a big opening question.
It is a big opening question.
It really happened. I had a good friend from primary school who was involved with film and documentary making. And for a long time, we talked about, we should do something. But he was busy making docos. I was busy working in landscape design and construction as a project manager with my friend's landscape business. And it was kind of like we were both on our paths and it was like, one day.
Yeah.
And then I actually got a phone call from a friend saying, there's a production company looking for a host kind of presenter of a possible lifestyle sort of garden show. Will I give him your name? And I was like, yeah, all right, whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Just roll the dice. They contacted me and said, come in for an interview. And then the day before the interview, they said, can we just come and visit you at your job? And we'll mic you up, we'll send a camo. And so they came out and I talked about the job I was doing. Mm-hmm. They said, we'll call you. And then about 18 months later. So
waiting for a while for the phone call.
Yeah. I lost a lot of weight. I was just sitting by the phone. And then that's when they got back to me and said, we want to look into this idea again. It's with SBS. And I was like, SBS? Yeah, I'm cool for that. And that's where the seed was sown for Costa's Garden Odyssey with SBS. And so with my friend Sean Kennedy, we made a proposal and we pitched it at the production company, and together we created the framework of the Odyssey, and then Costa's Garden Odyssey took off.
And how long did that go for?
That went for about 4 years.
Yep.
We did 2 series plus an Arnhem Land Odyssey special, which was, one of the best filming times I've ever had.
Oh, cool.
In terms of, I've since now had amazing experiences on country up north, but that was to go up to Arnhem Land and have 2.5 weeks up there. It was a real privilege, and I had the chance to take my dad with me.
Oh, wow.
And that was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life.
To go and do that?
To do that, yes, but to take dad.
What was so special about the whole experience?
Well, because I was thinking, I'm going to Arnhem Land, what can I take? Mm-hmm. And then I go, well, what can I take these people? Anything I take is going to be token.
Yeah.
And I thought, what can I take? And I was thinking about it for weeks. And then one day I woke up and it just clicked. And I thought, I got to take my elder.
Yeah, right.
That's what I've got to do.
Yeah.
And I spoke to the team and I said, I want to bring Dad. And they said, yeah, why not? And it was just the most amazing thing to watch for me, to bring my elder and say, this is me, this is my people, this is who I'm from. And the way the elders and dad interacted, but more equally the way the children, they just hung around him and latched onto him, and he'd just sit there. And this is up in Arnhem Land, and it was in like November. It was so hot.
I bet.
Dad grew up in Nyngan,
right?
So Western New South Wales. His thermometer is comfortable at 40.
Right.
So he just sat there. He would hate to go inside because he'd go, oh, it's Arctic in there. They'd have the air conditioners on, so cold. Yeah. He'd sit outside, and we're working at the school. We're building a garden at the school. Yeah. And he'd just sit on the veranda, and the kids would come and sit on his lap, and they'd follow his skin and look at the spots and say, oh, what's this one and what's that one? And I'd be working and filming and just look up and just see these kids climbing all over him. And you just, that sits in the centre of my heart, that
that's
experience.
A cool experience.
Yeah.
It really is. And you've been nominated for a Gold Logie as well. I mean, that's something pretty cool. You went up on the same year that friend of the show, Andrew Winters, went up, didn't you?
Oh, yes.
You were both nominated the same year.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you ever think you'd be, get to those kind of levels?
That's a really interesting question, because it's been such a joyous journey to be doing what I love, and then to have this kind of T-intersection, or it was probably almost, because it's not an exit, it's almost just a parallel road where I'm doing what I love, but then have had this incredible experience to start to tell the stories, tell what I love, but through a storytelling lens, and then to learn all about media and production and filming and the intricacies of storytelling.
Yes.
Because we're all storytellers.
Yeah.
The moment you open your mouth, you're telling a story. And this is what I say to kids all the time. How do you express, and what do you say, and how do you say it? And so to be able to suddenly have this opportunity to build this parallel world of what I love, I kind of sit here scratching my head.
Yeah.
Because every day I love it more.
Yeah, great.
And that's not a happy, clappy, toxic positivity.
Yeah.
Like it's genuine. Like talking just before we started about what I was doing yesterday, and then what I'm doing this afternoon, and then tomorrow, I'm off to another event, but it brings it all together. And the more it comes together, the more I see that everything is just folded into one.
Yeah, cool.
And I can see it in every activity.
Yeah. So you said when you were doing like your screen test, almost when you did that when people first turned up with the camera, you were working for a friend in a landscape company doing construction. So did you leave uni and then go into construction?
Well, what happened, I finished, got my degree, and I was like out the door. And I ended up living in Europe for the better part of a decade.
Right.
And I found work, funnily enough, after being on the road for about a year, I found work in Austria, and I got work with a landscape company there in the Vienna woods.
Yeah, wow.
And this Charlie, this chapter, this salad days, like some of the best years of my life.
Yeah.
Living in Vienna, I was working for this company, met great people. A lot of them didn't necessarily want to go out to the projects all over Austria, so I'd be like,
I'll do it.
Monday morning into the truck, Bobcat on the back, broom, like driving. I mean, the distances aren't the same as in Australia, but, you could get to one side of Austria, 4.5, 5 hours drive, go to the north, go to the south, southwest. And so I'd just be out all week we'd be building nature ponds, these things called biotops.
Yep.
And we also they were pretty early days with a growing rollout, almost like lawn, but sedges and meadows that they roll onto the roofs.
Yeah.
So we'd be putting rubber membrane onto roofs, installing that, then putting the lightweight mix, and then rolling out and pinning this meadow on, which basically Yeah, it was a beautiful piece of landscaping.
Yeah, it's amazing how they do that in Europe, isn't it? I don't know why they don't do that here. They don't seem to have the roll-up meadow. They don't seem to have the roll-up sedum, that kind of stuff. It's just lawn. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so I was doing that, and it was such a good time. You know, I learned how to speak German, travelled all over Austria. Then we started building biotops up into Bavaria as well, but had the best time, you know, building community-size swimming pools like nature ponds. We were also building water detention basins, so we'd be out there welding these rubber linings and building the sump zone where the plants would go, and building little creeks. We'd be on the little excavator digging creek lines and solar-powered pumps that would then circulate the water, so that they're all totally chemical-free. They were just basically a billabong filtered by water plants. And over the years that I was there, the only real developments beyond it just being a natural water feature filtered by plants, they set up like a skimmer box at one end, and you know, if you had the water feature at another end, it just created a current that would take the leaves, and that was pretty much it.
Right.
And
nature did the rest.
Nature did it all.
Is that where your love of sustainability came from, do you think? Because you're like I think being hands-on and doing something and seeing the results really, really helps in that kind of thing. And you're obviously known for your love of sustainability. Is that where it came from?
Yeah, all of that period was way ahead of the wave. Mm-hmm. You know, when I think I was doing community composting back then, that was 20 years before it really started to kick in here.
Yes.
So we were doing normal garden and landscape construction, but predominantly it was the nature ponds. And then everything about that was sustainability.
Yes.
They weren't using any chemicals. It was all about planting local species, understanding the season, the meadows, the edibility. We were planting fruit trees and things as well, and berries, and building edible gardens too. So I kind of had this immersion in real-time sustainability. And probably the thread in my life to the beginning, that would have then been back to my grandparents,
right?
They lived that, even though they didn't know the word. You know, as villagers, they were permaculturists before permaculture.
So these were your grandparents back in Greece?
Well, they came out from Greece. Okay. But I knew them from their backyard here in Sydney.
Right.
And that was just a menagerie, I'm sure, of life. It had goats, ducks, chickens, pigeons, fruit trees, vegetables, orchids, flowers. My grandmother loved flowers, and my grandfather too. Like, there was not this sort of flower gender specific sort of, the vegetables and the work is there. My grandmother would be out doing the garden as much as my grandfather, but my grandfather was just up to his elbows. And I think from a DNA point of view, my grandparents had such a love for nature, but it wasn't propelled like that.
Yeah.
It was just what life was.
Yeah, so were you out there with them?
Yeah.
Yeah, and were you getting is that where you learnt the skills?
I learnt a lot.
Yeah.
I learnt a lot.
But you were interested in it from an early age?
Yeah, because they had me in it.
Yes.
And then I suppose it was just osmosis.
Yeah, it just you can't help it.
You're around it, and I think the thing which sticks from my grandparents was their love of food, but knowing their food. And that level of trust in food. If they were going to eat something, they needed to know where it was.
Yeah.
Not because they were trying to be hipsters. It's because they genuinely didn't want to eat anything that they didn't know about, that essence is in me because I saw how much they loved to see us eat.
Yes.
My grandmother could set up a meal and would just sit opposite us and watch
you eat.
And she'd get such joy
Yeah.
out of the knowledge that she's prepared something that we were eating. And if you looked sideways at something, then the whole platter would be delivered to your plate.
Right, okay.
If you said, oh, that was good, out it would come. And I suppose that's what drives that in me.
Right.
Like their definition of life was not where are you going, but what are you going to eat? That's what they worried about, you know?
Yeah. So what's your garden like now? Do you have time to garden?
Do I have time to garden? I make time for it.
Yeah.
I don't always have time at the time I'd like.
Yes.
In terms of certain specific turning points pre-season.
Yes.
If I was a sports coach, you know, I'd be up for contract renegotiation because they'd say, "Where's your pre-season?"
Yeah.
You know, they'd go, "You didn't put your pre-season training in,
Yeah.
and you're putting the veg out in summer when it should have been out 3 months earlier."
Yeah.
I miss windows, but I've come to this realization that I go, look, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Because whatever I do, I can share stuff about it, and I can share the fact that I'm not perfect.
Yep.
And I wouldn't want to be, and I don't expect people to be.
Yep.
And that part of the reality of it is understanding and working with what's there.
Yes.
And making the best fit. So, you know, I had a badge of honour recently where I got a letter from the council saying your garden's overgrown.
That's brilliant.
So, you know, I thought that was really cool because I don't expect any special privileges.
Yep.
And yes, it was a bit because I've got vetiver grass growing along the edge of the footpath,
right,
and lemongrass growing on the edge of the road as like the borders, so that then people can walk across the paths that I have on the nature strip.
Okay.
So this is my street garden.
Yep.
But I'd been away for like 7 odd weekends, 8 weekends in a row, and we'd had rain, and the vetiver grass and lemongrass had grown out and was, you know, overhanging a bit. So someone's probably said, "Oh, it's a bit overgrown," or someone's driven past and seen it.
Yep.
And so I got this letter and I went, "Oh, look at that. That's a cracker." And I mean, it takes me 40 minutes and I just chip, clean it up, do this. And I've had people complain, you know, "Oh, the garden." I think I made it to News of the World or one of the tabloids saying, "Oh, you know, he travels the country teaching people how to garden and his garden's a mess and what a disgrace and rah, rah, rah." And they took photos of it all. And I was like, well, you can't criticise something you don't understand. And
for sure.
that was all green manure crops that I'm growing up. And there was rapa, you know, canola that just self-seeds every early spring, which is perfect for the insects because they get flowers early. And then I chop it and drop it down and it feeds the soil.
Yes.
So, yes, it looks a bit wild, but then it's serving a purpose. And if people don't understand that, then of course they're going to criticise. Yeah. And then I've got the section where it's just all natives. But I want the spiky plants in there. I want the understory. I want to leave the dead branches because that's where moths attach. That's where caterpillars exist. That's what brings in, you know, leaving the umbel heads of coriander. I did that 1 year and I got cluster bees. I'd never had native cluster bees come to my garden. And you just think, wow, that only came because of the architecture of death.
Yes. And
not being so anal about every dead leaf and every branch and lifting the canopy, you know, you don't want to have anything low down because I've got to get in there. But hang on, if I want the little birds, well, the little birds don't want the trunk lifted right up because then they've got nowhere to hide. And so it all connects. And so in a funny way, I see that misinterpretation as a badge that it's correct, but it's also an opportunity for me to be able to explain it. So
for sure.
I don't take it as a negative.
You didn't come kicking and screaming, "Do you know who I am?"
Yeah, no.
You don't strike me as that kind of a guy.
Yeah, man. Don't you know who I think I am? But no, not at all.
I think you said it perfectly, is you do what you can, right? I think there's often, with gardening, people are put off because they can look at an Instagram post or they can look at television and go, "That looks perfect. I'm never going to be able to do that." But you know, you and I, we kill plenty of plants, right? So it's just part of it. Just enjoy the process, I think. Enjoy the process. And like you said, the architecture of death is a wonderful thing for insects and stuff like that. I think that's something that's done, again, in Europe a lot more than here. I think there's a view that everything should be prim and perfect, and I think that comes from outdoor entertaining. You know, you've got your friends around, everything's got to be prim and perfect. When your friends come around, you can have the barbecue. But if you're thinking about a garden as such, then you need to think of it in a different light.
It's time to take a quick break from That's How We Grow to talk about the team that powers this podcast, STIHL. When the weather warms up, there's nothing better than getting busy out in the garden, especially when you're loaded up with all the best equipment to get the job done. Of course, I'm talking about STIHL battery-powered outdoor equipment. Check it out at stihl.com.au now and see the great range. It's powerful, lightweight, quiet, and gives you the power and performance you need to take care of some serious work in your garden. Pruners and trimmers, mowers and chainsaws, saws, blowers, vacs, and heaps more. The range is absolutely enormous. But you know what's even bigger? The choice of STIHL dealers right around the country. There's over 600 in fact, so you know there's one near you. Get out there, enjoy the sunshine, and get busy in the garden with STIHL battery-powered outdoor equipment. The #1 brand for garden power tools in Australia and the #1 selling brand of chainsaws worldwide. Check out the full range and find your nearest dealer now at stihl.com.au. That's stihl.com.au. Right, let's get back to the podcast.
If you could walk through any type of garden, what would it be? Because I've got a small garden in the city, which I like, but my ideal heaven is like walking out into a country property with lots of different garden rooms and lots of different flowers and then an edible garden and all that sort of stuff. What's your ideal garden like?
Yeah, well, like you say, that idea of having all these spaces, I find every day I'm just falling more and more in love with our Australian native plants. Okay. Like they just blow my mind, let alone when I head to places like Southwest WA or anywhere in WA, any of the WA plants, that's like another planet.
Yes.
That's just planet WA.
Yeah.
And as you learn about the mechanisms of these plants and what they do to survive in such
awful soil.
Depleted soil and incredible temperatures, and the way the flowers have built in these mechanisms to flower downwards, not upwards, and like learning more about our orchids, and that they're small, yet they're so beautiful, but they're not this big showy tropical thing that says, oi, over here, look at me, I'm as big as you are. They're these tiny things that you have to look out for. And when you go bush and then you start to get in your head, what's the cues? Oh, it needs to be sort of a cooler slope. There needs to be maybe a little drainage line, or it could be a log, and bang, you start to look for those. Rather than looking for the views, you start looking for the key indicators. So definitely would love to come strolling through almost a cross-section of Australian landscape. So if I was coming there by boat, well, that would be perfect, because then I'd come up through a coastal landscape and come through that front line and then over into the woodland and then into the tropical, into the coastal rainforest, and then move back up into the slopes and see the south-facing sclerophyll, or classic sandstone slope with the vegetation on that, and then cut across to the west-facing and then the north-facing, then get to the ridge top and have the angophras, just hugging the top of the hill and getting all gnarly and so on. And I'm seeing more and more really beautiful use of Australian native plants by designers, and bringing in the meadow and the grass. And when you see people like Jack Semler, she's doing beautiful stuff with meadows and swords and pollarding native plants so that they stay low. And so there's a whole world of that I'd love. But then equally, going into the Borderville, right. The borders and classic borders with grasses and that staggered structure of a good border that you walk into and you just hear it because there's so many insects. Yeah. So I'd love that as a transition to then coming out to a crazy mad paved area that has a pergola covered in grapevines and there's figs either side and citrus, and give me that Mediterranean space that I'd just be sitting underneath and have people and noise and conversation and the smell of the barbecue cooking. And I'd equally love to then get up into that alpine space, because the more I've been learning about the alpine landscape, the more I appreciate how incredible the plants there are and how they adapt and respond to the cold and hang on and limit their exposure at different times of the year. So yeah, that's a little bit of a taste of what I like. So
you just want it all, that's all?
Well, yeah, that was a bit that way, wasn't it? I think I've just done a full cross-section with it without, and I suppose then of course, filming yesterday, we were in a kind of rainforest landscape. And just, I think what I enjoy is seeing those interactions of how tree fern creates the microclimate for then the plants underneath to evolve. And then as that gets higher and then they get higher, that knocks certain species out. So, yeah, back to what you were saying, that gardening isn't a fixed thing.
No.
It's not like, there was the plan we had in 2020 and, hang on, why isn't it like that?
Yep.
Like, things change.
It's a moving, living thing. And I think when you realise that, you start to appreciate other people's gardens more, because you love what you have. But then, like you said, you'll go somewhere and be like, I want some of this. I just love it. But you can't have it all, can you? So it's just appreciating the whole circle of it, everything.
Yeah.
And now you're doing Gardening Australia Kids, which I think is fantastic to get kids into gardening. That's obviously something you enjoy doing. You can see that as you watch it. Was that your idea or ABC's idea?
Look, so I've been involved with Durka World and Get Grubby TV. So when I went to the ABC, I collaborated with Durka World because I said, well, let's get more families, let's get more kids. And so we collaborated and turned Durka World, which was an animation, into a real life thing.
Yeah.
And that's where Costa the Garden Gnome got written in.
Yeah.
And then we just didn't look back. And that's charging. You know,
great.
I love that. Like, it's a big part of my world and my life. And we always knew and had spoken to the ABC and said, we need to do a kids gardening show. And, time passed on and the idea goes round and then it goes around again and then it goes round, picked up again, maybe not quite this time. And then a decision was made within to say we should go ahead with a children's gardening show, and that's where Gardening Australia was manifest. And I think, I'm so chuffed that the second series, we're currently filming it.
Great.
And, that's a big step because you can get one up, but then to get the second one.
That's almost harder than getting the first one up.
Yeah, because it's like, come on. This is bouncing. This is flying. Let's keep momentum. And I'm so happy that we've got this chance to dive into the second series, because you do one series, you feel like it's starting to get its identity and its feel. And now with the new series, we can build that and take it to the next step. And I'd like to think that it will be like a parallel and march together as a natural fit to the main show.
So if someone's got kids and they want to get them into gardening, what's like your top tips for that?
Yeah, I think just action. Like, you could live in an apartment and you don't have a garden, it doesn't matter. You can make them gardeners by getting out into nature and going on bushwalks and going to your local community garden and meeting the gardeners, seeing what's going on at the local school, and as a parent saying, I'll come and volunteer.
Yes.
Your kids are watching you all the time. They, like I was like a hawk with my grandparents.
Yes.
Like, just if my grandmother was, cutting one of the cymbidium orchids, I was just watching it, and then I'd know when I'd come and visit if there was one in the house.
Yep.
Like, you
smell
it, and then I'd see her out there picking the posies of the sweet peas.
Yep.
And so I'd then go, whoa, can I come and pick some? And then I'd take them home to give to mum if I was there with dad. So for me, so much of it is about our actions and how we get the kids. We want them to be little garden activists.
Yes.
And the best way is by starting, and even if it's just a couple of 300 ml pots and planting some flowers, and then letting them watch it. Like, I was at my nephew's place the other day, and I always take some plants, like whether it's some seedlings or whatever, and I plant them with my little nieces. Mm-hmm. And when I went down the side passage to see if I could find a bit of soil, I noticed an old laundry basket, and I said, and I'd bought some snow peas seedlings. I said, let's do that. Let's turn this in. So I got the little ones out, and we put some soil in the bottom. Yeah. We planted the snow peas. Now, what was the gold? A week ago, I get a photo of little Vera standing there with a snow pea in her hand. Perfect. And he said she ate them all.
Yeah.
And she'd planted them, and then she was like, and she was going out every morning. He said she goes out every morning. How they going? And that's how you get kids into it.
Yes.
Just a little activity that then they follow up with, oh, well, we go back to grandma's to see if you don't have a garden space. Yeah. Let's set it up at grandma's or at auntie's or at uncle's or one of your friends and say, can we set up a little plot? And then there's your excuse to go and visit them. There's the excuse for them to send you a photo and say, oh, let's call them up. Can they do a FaceTime? How are the seedlings growing? Yeah. You know, so for me, it's not about embarking on some massive, oh, let's just dig up the whole backyard and turn. No, that's a burden. I think you want to always make it step by step.
Yeah, so start small.
Yeah.
No, yeah. You're a lover of community gardens as well. Is that something you'd recommend taking your kids to go and see? And how do you get involved with community gardens for those that want to but are a bit lost?
Yeah. Gardeners talk.
Yeah.
You know that.
Yeah.
as much and as well as I do. You bring children to a community garden, they'll be swamped.
Yeah.
You know, adults will come if they show some interest. And if you encourage them to go and say hello to someone and ask them a question, oh, what's that plant? Oh, is that a gourd? What's that strange shaped thing hanging off the frame there? You know, oh, that's a New Guinea bean or something. Wow, look at it, it's a metre long. You know, all of that stuff. So, and if you go and no one's there, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Take some photos of things and then go back and see how they fare. And even having a little exercise book or a folder where you can take photos and say, let's take a photo of this tree and we know that, and see what happens when it flowers. And so suddenly the kids get, I think, context.
Yeah, and start to understand it changes and there's interest there. It's not just something you look at once, right?
Yeah. And like go to the Botanic Gardens and enjoy a visit, but then go again in a month and maybe say, oh, well, let's go to the nursery and let's see what's in flower and maybe get something and pick one of the staff and say, what could we get that might be flowering, you know, that we can put in and watch? And that way build that relationship. And instead of, you know, going to the shopping centre, you know, for an activity or instead of going, oh, what can we do? Oh, let's go and let's do our monthly visit to have a walk around the nursery.
Yeah.
And that could then just be, oh, well, we'll get a drink and a seedling, or let's do something from seed. But ask someone so that it's not just you as the driver.
Yeah, okay. That's good advice.
You know, get someone else involved and maybe, you know, speak to your sister or your brother and say, do you want to come? And maybe bring your kids and do stuff that doesn't always involve going to a destination purely to be entertained. Make them find, like, go and see if you can find a blue flower.
Yeah, great.
Or go and see if you can find a spiky plant.
Yes.
And why is it spiky? Oh, it's spiky because the little birds will hide. Oh, well, let's put one of those in under. And where could we get that? And start to get them to draw plans and maybe look at a space and say, well, what will we put here? Will we make it a butterfly garden, or will we make it a bird garden, or will we make it a sensory garden where it all smells? And where's a scented plant? So there's just using the senses, you could make 5 visits and say, let's go and pick a plant.
The one thing kids don't run out of is imagination, you know, which is a good thing when it comes to gardening, right?
Yeah. And they need us to clear the space. I was talking to someone about this the other day. It's good for kids to be bored so that they then get creative and then you double down on their creativity rather than farm it out to a screen or to a place or to someone else. And if you double down on their creativity, then that is a recognition of them finding their space and looking at the world through their goggles. And if you actually say, oh, that's a really great idea, what else do you think we could do? And so it's not about stuff, it's about their capacity to just imagine. And we lose that as adults.
Absolutely, we do. You've got a new book coming out, don't you? A new kids book, and you're obviously very passionate about it. So when does that come out?
Yeah, look, this is a whole new world for me, and it
doesn't seem like a whole new world. You seem very passionate about it, but
the book, the children's book writing. I suppose what's funny is I'm always immersed in that space, but I just never had the time to do it. And after writing my book, And people go, oh, come on, you got to do another one. I was going, no, just give me a break.
Yeah.
And I said, if I do something else, it's going to be a kid's book, because that's the other half, probably even more than half of my world.
Yeah.
So I was excited about doing it, and I learnt a lot along the way, because, you have a 32-page book. There's maximum 800 words.
Yeah.
So you pick a topic and say, I'm going to talk about that in 800 words. I've barely got past the hello, how are you in 800 words.
Yeah.
So I had to do my brain dump on it all. But then the best part is that condensing and the collaboration with Illustrator.
Yep.
But the illustrator actually becomes co-author. And so together with Brennan Quinlan, who's an amazing illustrator, we've collaborated. And the first book we've done is Flowers. And there's so rich a vein of story to tell about flowers. And we had such a good time really nutting it down and whittling it bit by bit. And her drawings and illustrations, because I wanted it to be that we go into the garden and you put your nature goggles on and the world gets big. The flowers are big, the insects are big, the spiders, the everything.
Yeah.
And you realise the more you dive in that those stories of life are connected to flowers around every part of who we are, culturally, individually. So it's been a joy to do this, and it comes out I think in late November, early December.
Perfect for Christmas.
Yeah, well, it happened that way, but it's got to be comfortable. Like a book like that, that's something that I'll share with kids. Kids are coming up on the conveyor belt every day, so it's got to be right.
Yeah.
It's not, I just want to write a book.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I would have done it 12, 14 years ago.
Yeah, for sure.
It's like, no, when the time's right, we'll do it.
Yeah, awesome. Look, I think we could chat probably all day long. But we do actually have to wrap it up. I think it's been close to an hour. But we've got a couple of community questions. Do you mind hanging around and answering those?
Yeah.
Awesome. Chloe from Coffs Harbour has written in and said, "Hi Charlie, I love my garden, but I'm concerned how climate change will impact some of the established trees in my backyard. Do you have any advice on design, planting or irrigation to help my green patch thriving?" Well, first of all, your garden's always going to change. As soon as you plant a tree, it's going to get bigger, and then you're going to have cooler microclimates underneath. You're going to change the water requirements. But with climate change, I personally think if you're worried about it, have a look at your council's endemic plant list, because they're the plants that have evolved in that situation. They're probably going to be the ones that are best suited for any big change in climate. But what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I agree. I think we can't look at it and say, well, I can replace that with that and everything's going to be all right, because there's no guarantee that the plants that are struggling are going to struggle completely. You might be able to then just adjust and make sure you build the soil, you give them more water, or improve the drainage. So if it's one of those extremes, if there's more heat or more rain, what you've got to do is just watch what's going on. And I think the good challenge in all of this is that it means you need to be more observant.
Yes, absolutely. I think soil health as well is key. Healthy soil is a great thing for healthy plants. It's often overlooked in Australia.
Exactly. And, you look at the period recently here in Sydney, it's been very windy and very dry.
So today.
Today. Yeah, exactly. Outside of today. But you get those situations where you might just get a day of rain and people think, oh, that was enough.
Yeah, no.
But it wasn't. No. And then it's dry again. So really, I think in this period of time, be vigilant and keep records.
Yep.
Just say, oh, when did the wind start? When did the rain start? When did it flower this year? When did the leaves start to drop? All of those things, because if you set up your own database, that's the most valuable database that neither you or I can offer anything on for where she is.
Yep, absolutely. Right, Michael from South Sydney says, "Hi Charlie, I've just moved into a new place. I finally got some space for a veggie garden. Any quick tips and tricks to make sure I'm setting myself up for success?" Pick the sunniest spot.
Yeah.
Pick the sunniest spot, that's it. Improve your soil. If you want it raised up, that will help with the drainage. And start small, I guess. Don't go out and buy every single seedling you see, because you'll become overwhelmed.
Yeah. given that you're into this place for the first time, don't necessarily go and build any hard and fast fixed structures until you've experienced all the 4 seasons at that location. And take notes.
Yeah.
See where the sun is at 10 a.m, midday, 2 p.m, 4 p.m, and note that down. Take photos so that you can, from the same spot, or make a little plan and draw a line so you can say, okay, well, the winter sun is here, the summer sun's there, and, you know, maybe in that first year just make things a little mobile, or just be comfortable with putting it roughly where you're happy, and then adapting and adjusting over a couple of years.
Yep, good advice. All right, next is Lil from Brisbane. Hi, Charlie. I heard you say that classical music is proven to improve plant health. Is that genuine? I think it's the vibrations of music, isn't it? Yeah. So, yes, it is.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, that sort of means that sort of some hard rock can offer, you know, different basal tones that might agitate, you know, some seed germination as well. So, yeah, rip in. Just crank the volume.
Just crank it up, yeah.
Get that Marshall stack singing.
So Mia from Melbourne has asked, is there anywhere I look to find out about local community gardens or projects that I can get my whole family involved with? So you love a community garden, don't you? How would you go about getting involved with one?
Yeah, I'd say first step, definitely jump on Community Gardens Australia. I'm involved with them.
Is that a Facebook page?
Yeah, Facebook page, but also website.
Okay.
And if you go on the website, there's actually a Community Gardens Near Me sort of app, and you can go in there and find community gardens all around the country. Definitely jump on there. Follow those pages on your socials, because you'll see lots about what's going on. Also, keep track with the A2E2, which is Australian Association of Environmental Educators, because those pages and those websites are sharing when those conferences are, when those gatherings are, talks and workshops. Also jump on Landcare Australia and Junior Landcare. Junior Landcare website has a wonderful learning centre, and Landcare Australia and your local Landcare groups have lots of talks and events going on that can really help you with growing those local species and building your biodiversity and your wildflower corridors and your planting that's endemic and local. So there's a few options there that there's always talks and workshops on.
Yeah, and you can always just turn up to a community garden, can't you? Find out when people are there, turn up, say hello. Guarantee they'll never turn you away.
Most of them will have, often on the sign, it says, you know, Saturday 10 till 12.
Yep.
And the other thing to remember, they'll always, generally speaking, if you turn up to any of these events, there'll be morning tea.
Oh, yeah, for sure they will.
It's deluxe.
That's
best. Homemade at its best, beyond bakery.
Yeah, awesome. I actually had a load of extra tools, and I took them down to the community garden and said, here you go, guys, I'm not using these anymore. And I had one of the best morning teas. It was paid in full in morning tea. It was great.
That's such a good idea, you know, and so much goes to landfill that should never make it. And, you know, if you've got one or two things that you've just got multiples of,
great
even
if
place
it's half
to
a bag of fertilizer, something like that, it's good. Or the local men's shed as well is another good one. All right, Mackenzie from Newcastle. Every time I try to explain the importance of looking after our plants and garden to my son, he just rolls his eyes. Charlie, could you please do it for me? So when I was like, I think I would have been about 15 years old, my mum said to me, I'm going to, do you want to earn some money? There's a pile of rocks in the garden. You can move them. They need to be moved. I'm going to be building a wall over the other side of the garden. I'll pay you 5p a rock. And I rolled my eyes. I was like, Mum, there's like 3 hours worth of work there for 50p. I'm not doing it. And I rolled my eyes and walked off. But, I ended up in gardening somehow. So I reckon just keep persisting.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. I think you might want to expose him to some of the edibility.
Yes.
When, for example, the snow peas are on.
Oh, yeah.
Introduce him to the snow peas. Maybe trying anything on the spot. Like, and just talk consistently. You don't have to talk at him.
Yep.
Just talk generally. Today I was doing this and we got this here. Try a bit of that.
Yep.
Do a bit of this. Can you just come and give me a hand for a minute? I need a photo of this. Or just left field things that aren't trying to tie him down for a whole Saturday morning. But I think a really powerful way is to expose them through food.
Yes.
And so if you cook anything that you've grown, just mention it. Just drop a little Just little depth charge. Oh, this was the silver beet we used. We made this spinach pie. Oh, this is the snow pea in the salad. Here's our tomatoes. Come and try this straight off the vine. Just do it subtly but continuously.
Yeah, I've actually noticed my kids eat more food if they know that I've grown it. You know? Like, there's something about it. There's more excitement about it, isn't there?
Oh, and it is. It's that. Oh, can I pick one yet? No, not yet.
Yeah.
Oh, can we? Oh, and I used to do that with my nieces and nephews when I was cooking, making a salad or anything. Oh, I'm hungry. No, not yet. Oh, come and help me cut the tomatoes. Oh, I'm hungry. Can I have? Oh, all right. Here, have some.
Yeah.
And then have some more. Oh, have some more. If they eat it all before it goes on the plate, that's fine.
Yeah.
But just get them eating it.
Yeah, for sure. All right, last question is from Charlie from Maroubra. He wants to know if you were born with your beard.
I think I know which Charlie from Maroubra that was. Yeah. I think I was a rare freak of nature. The doctors were like, "Oh my God, he's got a beard. It's the first one ever in history."
All right. A reminder, you can send through your questions anytime. Just email me, charlie@stihl.com.au. Costa, you're a legend of gardening. You're doing fantastic stuff in Australia, getting kids and adults into gardening. I think it's a fantastic thing. I'm not going to say watch you on ABC because it's the same time as Better Homes and Gardens.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you for coming on the show.
No, Charlie, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
That is the final episode for this season of That's How We Grow. Thank you to all of our guests who have appeared this year. It's been wonderful learning and chatting about all of our gardening insights and experiences. Most importantly, thank you for listening. We hope you've enjoyed the episode, and don't forget you can catch up on past seasons as well. Big thanks to the team who helped bring this podcast together, including my great mates at STIHL. Stay connected on our social channels for news on future episodes.
Listener.
Thanks for joining me on That's How We Grow, and thanks to STIHL for powering it all along. Remember, STIHL's battery-powered outdoor equipment is powerful, lightweight, quiet, and it gives you the power and performance you need to take care of some serious work in your garden. And with over 600 dealers across Australia, there's going to be one near you. Check out the full range and find your nearest dealer now at stihl.com.au.